Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today. We did some Colby work for your team last year. Can you just talk a little bit about one, why you did it and what were the benefits for
Absolutely.
you?
So the why is simple. We had some unhappiness amongst the troops, where we had a couple of folks that just sort of consistently weren't getting along. And I was in a position where I loved them all and they all brought something fantastic to the table, and I didn't want anybody to leave. But I was aware, very keenly aware, that if I didn't resolve some of the personality issues, something was going to give and somebody would walk out the door. And I wanted to prevent that. So that was the why. What was the second part?
Well, the second part was the results. So we did, just to share with our listeners, we did a team engagement where everybody did Colby Index A and Index B. And then we did some team sessions where they learned about the concept, they learned about each other. We talked about the overall team dynamic, and then we did some individual sessions after. So that's sort of the how we did it. So what was the impact to your team?
Well, I think the greatest impact is probably the story that everybody's still here. So I think we're probably 10 months after we started working together, and not only is everybody still here, but I don't feel that threat hanging over my head anymore that somebody's going to leave. I mean, it still could happen, but it won't be because there's this like imminent threat of we don't get along. And it's not to say that that won't play a role in somebody's choice to leave at some point, but we're 10 months later, and Colby definitely gave us a path to walk down when things weren't going well, to say, okay, we know this is how you function and we know this is how you function, very different. But keeping in mind that we all have the best of intentions and are working towards the same goal. Let's talk about how we're going to get to the finish line using each other's strengths as opposed to being upset with one another. And it helps us to kind of tamp down the temperature a little bit.
That's great. And one thing you said before we started recording was you have it to go back to. Like
Mhm.
you just had to go back to it in December. Can you speak to that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a challenge where, two people just, again, at best of intentions, trying to get to the same finish line, doing it in a different way. And so they were getting frustrated with each other. And we took a step back and I talked to each of them and I just said, hey, this is how she functions. This is why she's obviously getting a little riled up. So you know where she's coming from. We understand where you're coming from. What steps can we take to get you to the finish line using your strengths that I can then share with the other person so that we have a roadmap of how we're going to finish this project without getting all bent out of shape.
And you were able to bring the team back into sort of a collaborative, positive.
Yes,
All right, Amy, thank you so much for your time and for sharing that with our listeners.
absolutely.